All right, welcome back to another edition of the Call Up Podcast. And this week, I am glad to have Justin from the Wrestling Classic. What's going on, buddy?
Not much, man. Sorry, I got what I was trying to get for you right now. But I'm doing good. I'm doing good, man. I'm just living life, trying to get through this weird period of time with this pandemic that never seems to be ending. Things have been all right. Getting creative this year. Last year was a little bit rough, but I'm sure we'll talk.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the world is like open and closed halfway. It's like some places are open and other places are closed. So it's like you can never know what's what.
And I'm in this very tough position because I'm in Canada, right? Like I'm from Vancouver. Right. And a lot of the stuff I want to do or are necessary for me to do to move forward, and a lot of things that I want to do mean I need to come to the United States, which is closed for me right now, technically. So, like, I know I can come there if there's a legitimate reason, business-wise or immediate family, but, you know, you don't say you're doing business if you ain't got a work visa. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, that's how it is. Like even certain parts, like around here, like with me and my wife, we'll try and sit there and think like, okay, what's open that we can do with our kids, and it's like hard because you literally have to like look at all the guidelines and be like, okay, is this place open? Because if not, you literally just wasting your time.
No, 100%. I'm 100% on board with that, and I feel like there's been a lot of. I went through a whole phase last year personally where I feel like I kind of just stopped doing everything. I just got in this position where I was really fed up. I'm like, well, like, everything. And it almost came to a point where I felt like I was using the pandemic as an excuse for why things weren't happening, to be honest.
Yes.
And I think this year specifically, I've gotten myself at that slump. I don't know. I'm not one of those people that's like new year, new me, or like really makes New Year's resolutions or anything like that. But I did start off the year being like, you know what? This is a fresh start.
Yeah.
Let's try to start making things happen. Let's start bringing back, the casual conversations that I do. Let's start trying to find new ways to make, money. Let's try to reach out to companies myself and create my own opportunities rather than sitting there trying to wait for something to happen. Let's get a little aggressive. And it's been good so far this year. There's been a lot of cool things I'm probably jumping ahead of questions you want to ask me, but a lot of cool things I've been able to do since I've had this mentality of like, screw it. Like, let's just try. Let's just try to make things happen, even though I'm stuck here in Vancouver. And like, I reached out to Renee Paquette, who was I've always had a solid relationship with, and she just left the WWE, a.k.a. Renee Young. And I was like, this is my opportunity to reach out to her and be like, hey, do you want to like do an interview? And she was gracious enough to be like, yeah, let's do it. And I'm like, oh, sweet. And I hadn't done an interview at this point, maybe in like 5.5 months. Like I took like, to go deeper in the story, like, when the pandemic began, I remember sitting at home, and I just got back from California in February, like 23rd, 24th. And then like the beginning, like a week after I got home, the world shut down, right? I was like, crap, like I was supposed to go back to California. I just got the TWC show on Dash Radio. I met up with these people at that hashtag show. We're talking about getting together again and me creating content with them. Like all these things were moving in the right direction. And now because of this coronavirus thing, it all got put to a stop. And then I remember sitting here, I'm like, well, you know what? Throughout the years, I've got to network and meet a lot of cool people. Why not just kind of interview them, just have these conversations with them? And I don't like to call myself an interviewer because I don't think I'm a great interviewer. But as you can tell already, for the people that are probably hearing me for the first time, I can talk for days and I can have conversations.
Exactly.
So I was like, let's just have conversations with these guys. And what happened was I did one with Shad Gaspard of Crime Time. Like we did one together, and I've known Shad for a couple of years now. I first met him at WrestleMania weekend in 2019, and we clicked, and we've just been cool ever since. And by the end of it, I did the cordial, yeah, we should do this again sometime. Like this is a great time. If we ever want to do round 2, let's do it. And he was like, let's do this next week. He's like, you know what? I got nothing to do with the pandemic. He's like, let's do this.
Exactly. That's what everybody was like.
And I was like, oh, okay. Because I learned a long time ago, if an opportunity comes, hop on it. So I hopped on the opportunity. And me and Shad started doing a show every week for about 5 weeks. We did first another casual conversation, just kind of see if we could test it out, see how it was. And then we turned into a show. And I remember asking him, like, so what do you want to call the show? And he's like, are we allowed to swear on here?
Yeah, you go.
Yeah. I asked him, like, so I'm like, what do you want to call the show? And Shad's like, no fucks given, because I give no fucks. And I'm like,
there you go.
And I'm like, I don't know if I can necessarily market that in the long term. So I'm like, we can call it like NFG radio. He's like, I love it. So I'm like, if people know what the NFG stands for, solid. If they don't, they're not in on the joke, right? And he's like, I love it. So we did about like 3 episodes of that. And then obviously as wrestling fans know for sure. Like he unfortunately passed away. Like
Mm-hmm.
a day after we recorded a show, he went out with his family to the beach, and he was in the ocean with his son.
Yeah, man, that was tragic.
Yeah, all that happened, and after that, I kind of took a break from doing that. Like I continued doing the TWC show because it's not on video form, and
right.
you know, I have prior obligations to Dash Radio and whatnot. But I stopped doing the interviews. I think I did like one more after that, and then even after doing that one more, I just wasn't in it. So this year came around, and we got back to it, and honestly, it's crazy, man. The last couple of years for sure.
Yeah, because I remember when I found out about your page and stuff like that, I was just like so curious. I was just looking at like all these different wrestling stuff, and I was like, man, this guy he posts about everything. So I loved it. So I started following it, and I remember bumping into you in 2019, and I was trying to I remember like you was like, who were you? I think you were with Nerds Clothing, like just like hanging out, and I kind of just like waved because I knew the like a couple of people that was with them. And then I was like, oh yeah, that's the guy from the Wrestling Classic. And I was like, all right, cool. And I was in line for like Shawn Michaels, just waiting. And then I was just like, I always said like I was going to come back and probably like, you know, speak to you, but you probably like either went somewhere or left.
Was that 2008? Was that in WrestleMania weekend?
Yes, because it was in New York. I'm here in New York. So I was just like, oh, okay.
WrestleCon, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I do remember that event. I bumped into a lot of people. First things first, I was gonna say if you did meet me and I was completely awkward or something, I apologize because like it was still, especially in 2018, it was still weird to me that anybody like kind of got excited to meet me. It made no sense. It still makes no sense to me. I'm an Instagram page, but I guess people's perception is different than how I perceive myself. Because I don't get like why people get nervous to meet me, or like when they come up to me and I'm like, oh, like it used to be really weird to me when people. I'm grateful for it. I'm totally humbled by it. It means the world. But like when someone asks me like, yo, can I take a picture with you? I'm like, me? I'm like,
okay.
Well, yeah, okay, sure. I don't know what you're gonna do with it, but okay, like
it's
unique, you know. But I remember. It also was really weird to me, especially in 2018, because when I started the Wrestling Classic, like the backstory of it, to be honest, was my ex-girlfriend didn't want me to have Instagram. There was the whole situation, trust issues and whatnot, and I remember sitting here, I was eating, and I scammed my way to have the WWE Network early in Canada, and I was watching the Wrestling Classic pay-per-view. Like that's what I was watching. Everyone's like, "How did you come up with the name?" I'm like, I was watching the Wrestling Classic, made a wrestling page. I'm like, "Oh, the Wrestling Classic."
There you go.
I went on my personal page. I blocked all my friends and family. About two, like until like I want to say around 2016, like nobody even knew who ran the page, what I looked like, what my name was, and it was literally just like it was a full on just like side thing I did while I was working in my career in finance and all that. Like it was never anything I thought that was gonna become anything, and I did things. Like I obviously attempted to do things. Like I made merchandise and stuff, and I sold it, and you know everyone was buying the shirts, and everyone was really supporting them. It was still super grateful for like the way that people were so supportive. And I was in Dallas for WrestleMania weekend. I remember I saw a guy named Mo and he was wearing the Wrestling Classic shirt. And I saw him like, hey, that's my shirt. He's like, oh, you're the guy. And you got to recall, like nobody's seen me. Nobody knows what I look like.
Nobody knew exactly who this guy looked like.
Yeah, I'm like, I was Batman, and Bruce. Now you just bumped into Bruce Wayne. You know what I mean? I'm like, and he's like, oh, that's you. I'm like, yeah. He's like, it's you. He's like, oh, can I take a picture with you? And back then, I was so like, I'm like, oh no, I don't take pictures of people and stuff. Yeah, like I don't do that, and I wasn't comfortable with it. It was weird to me. But I'm like, can I take a picture of you rocking the shirt? He's like, oh yeah, of course. And I still have the picture of him holding two belts. He's rocking Wrestling Classic. And I took a picture and I posted it. And he's like, dude, he's like, so many people are asking about you. I'm like, who? He's like, because he just walked out of WrestleCon, right? And I was going in there because I was friends with Mandy Leon already at this point, and she was getting us into Ring of Honor. They were doing their super show there at the same Hyatt Regency. And he's like, oh, a bunch of people. I'm like, who? He's like, oh, like just random people were asking me if I was you, and also like the wrestlers. And that's when I realized I was like, oh, I got to put my face out there. Like I need to own this because anybody could be walking around and be like, oh, I am that guy. And nobody would really know.
Anybody could right now could take that likeness and be like, oh yeah, that's me, and start like a fake page or like start doing like, you know, shit, and then all of a sudden you get like a bad rep.
Yeah, people were asking Mo if he was the guy. I'm like, what if this guy just started saying yeah?
But it's crazy. No, but it's crazy sometimes. Like when I get messages where people will be like, they want me to come on their show, or they like want advice, and I'll be like, me, like, I've only been doing this for like 9 months, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's weird because it was like, how long you been doing this? I was like, and I had to go back to like my first interview, and I was just like, oh man, it's been 9 months already. But it feels like I just did this maybe yesterday.
Yeah.
So it's just weird. Even just doing the whole Instagram page is like another thing where like it's literally like a part-time job because you have to constantly keep updating it. And some people just be like, but why? And I was like, no, because I just enjoy it.
Yeah, and I feel for you because it's a lot harder now than it was in 2014. First things first, I feel like I just started doing stuff, and I've been doing this since 2014. Blows my mind because I'll be like, oh, I guess it has been that long, which also motivates me because I'm like, there is a part of me that's like, well, you know what? I should be doing more then. Like if I've been doing it for long. I do think I only really started considering it as like something I can do something with in 2016. Right. I think that's really the turning. Like the first 2 years, I was just posting stuff, and to be honest, I used to joke around. I'd be like, "Yo, I had like my own attitude era." Because prior to like putting my face out there and stuff, like I popped off by doing some really immature, dumb things on my page, like posting content that I have archived and will never be seen ever again. And because the reason I blocked all my friends and family was like I wanted to be myself, but to an exaggerated. I want to say things that like I would actually never say. In real life or actually met, and I did. And I have my fair share of stories, and I'm blocked by Kevin Nash, who I've met and is a great dude and doesn't know that he has me blocked, but I'm blocked by Kevin Nash and Eva Marie and whatnot for rightful reasons. But I feel like for people like yourself, like you said, you just started this how long ago?
Let's see. I started this page, the caller page, probably like a year ago.
I feel for you because everything's so much more difficult to get noticed now.
There's so many other pages that are doing the exact same thing. There's other, like I started doing the page and then just posting random stuff, like stuff that I got in the mail, people, things that are going on like in the wrestling business that I hear. And then it just, from there, the pandemic started. And then I was just like, damn, there's no shows. I can't meet up with any of my friends. What should I do? And then I decided to do this. I'm just going to have conversations with people and just see who I can interview. And then I just started building from there. And that's how I got here.
No, and I get that. I feel like it kind of went through the same transition. And I feel for you in the sense that I always say when people ask me, like, so like, what is your advice? Like, what's the thing? I'm like, well, I can give you all the advice in the world. And there is all that advice I can give you about consistency, being consistent, being engaging, being someone that people can relate to. Don't just be someone that posts pics and pictures. Like, start a conversation, comment back, respond to people's comments. It's like all those things matter, right? Be open to people. I hate it when someone starts blowing up on social media or like just in the world and celebrity or some sense. Like, I'm not saying I'm that, but like when people start growing and they become like a page that has a lot of followers and they just start not answering people's DMs and stuff because they feel like, I don't know, like it's a weird mentality to have. But I can give you all that advice in the world. But at the end of the day, like, I know for a fact that part of the reason I grew the way I grew too was timing. Like, I'm never going to say it wasn't. Like, I chose Instagram over trying to start something on Twitter because I already saw that Twitter was saturated. I came on Instagram like, oh, there's wrestling pages on here. There was like classic wrestling and there was obsessed with wrestling because I followed some. But there wasn't a lot of wrestling pages. And the ones that were there were either like Bella Twin fan pages, Shield fan pages, role play accounts, pages that were dedicated to independent wrestling, pages that were dedicated to current wrestling, and then a handful, like maybe like three, maybe like I think it was $1 Million Champion Classic Wrestling. There's like 3 pages that did classic wrestling, and that's why I knew that there was room to grow there. And I have a marketing background. I know the tricks of the trade. You know what I mean? I knew the benefits of hashtags and how to share things, and just the way Instagram was too. The algorithm was in order. You had that following tab, so if people were liking your posts, you could see that other people were liking your posts. Like, it was just so much easier to get discovered and grow on Instagram than it is today. And to your point, there's so many wrestling pages. I almost got discouraged about doing those interviews, the casual conversations, because I was like, there's so many people doing interviews. There's so many podcasts. Like, so the best advice I think you can give people is just to go out there and start. Just try. Who says you're not going to grow your own audience and have your own audience? Who says that if you're not going to work harder then someone else can continue to do it. My buddy Nick Diaz, Nick Lamb, or however you know him, he has a Veteran Minimums podcast. The one thing that he pointed out on the show one time that I think he heard on the Clubhouse chat was there's a certain amount of podcasts on Apple Podcasts. There is a lot of podcasts.
Yep.
There's only so many that are like still going. People start them and fall off all the time.
Because there's so many people where I've seen where like, you know, you will see them there for like consistency throughout the months, and then maybe like a year in, like they either take a break or they're gone, or they just stop like whatever their content was and they just don't have it anymore. They just completely just like fall off. So it's always good to like, you know, keep going, keep changing. So, I mean, like with you, you've been doing this since 2014. Like, what challenges do you see like for yourself now as like now we're in 2021? There's like a million pages out there. So like, are there any other challenges that you're facing right now?
Oh yeah, I got so many. Like we've already kind of talked about the whole being stuck in Vancouver situation. There's not much of a wrestling scene here. There is, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to discourage the companies that are here. They're really great and they do bring people in, but there's not much of a wrestling scene. Like I've hung out in New York and there's so many independent companies and wrestling stuff going on there. I've hung out in Toronto. There's a wrestling scene there. I spent a lot of time in California. There's a good wrestling scene there. There just isn't much of it up here, and there's not much people you can connect with when it comes to terms of wrestling and creating content and whatnot. So that's always been a struggle. And because I think I've come to a point where I have to be doing more stuff like this, where my face is out there and I'm talking about wrestling. Because to your point, there's a lot of wrestling pages that are doing the exact same thing I'm doing, whether they're doing the same thing I was doing a couple of years ago or they're doing the same thing I'm doing now. There's a lot of it. What makes me different than everybody else is the fact that, one, I think a lot of people, and this is not coming from me, this is from these people, they'll be like, oh, he's like the OG around here. Like he's the guy that's been here since day one. And then two, I think I've just been able to grow a loyal following, but I want to be able to give them more now. I want to be doing more interviews and putting out like a content where I'm talking, giving my opinions and stuff like that. And also I've been forced to change, right? Like my hand has been forced. My page got taken down for 5.5 months last year. That was also part of the reason why there was a big break from everything. I woke up one morning and my page was taken down. It took me 5.5 months to fight to get it back.
Yeah.
I started another page, TWC Worldwide, which was my old merch page. And I was using that as my new official page, and that grew to 45K. But the moment I got this page back, they deleted that page. And my hand has been forced not to post videos. I am not allowed to post old school videos, new videos. Like I have, luckily, fortunately, I have a great relationship with AEW, like a fabulous relationship with them, to the extent that I'm not saying anything is set in stone or would have been set in stone, but I'm saying like, I feel like if the world was open, I probably could do something really cool with them, but I'm unable to meet them and hang out with them properly. Right. But I have a great relationship with AEW, at least from my perspective. I don't know how they feel about me, but from my perspective, I think I have a great relationship with them, and they were very helpful when my page got taken down and helped me to get it back. WWE, I have a great relationship with people that work there. I don't have a great relationship with everyone that works there. Because they are a major part of the reason why the page got taken down. But luckily, I have a solid enough relationship with a certain amount of people there that I was able to get help to get it back. But part of that was you cannot post videos. Stay away from that. And I think the biggest thing I'm facing now is how to create more content and content that my followers are going to appreciate without being able to post videos and stuff, which I know a lot of my following is loyal, but I've gotten the comments of like, why don't you post matches or moments and one? And I'm like, I can't, like my hands are tied. I can't. I post one video, it gets taken down, the page is gone again.
And that's my concern because of the work that I put into this. So like when I post things like, and I post like say like pictures and stuff like that, I always get that worry because it's just, I've seen so many pages get taken down that have so many different followers. I'm just like, the worst thing I want to do is like wake up and then it's gone. And then I literally have to start because what's crazy about it is, it's crazy about it is that when I started this page here and I changed the name, I had another one that was it was called, THE call up, you know what I mean? Instead of like the call up. Yeah. And Instagram like literally blocked it. I couldn't get into it. They would not respond back. So I literally had to just start over. You know what I mean? So and then it's been, it's grew back to the way it was and even better. But like that's just like my fear now, where I just say like, oh my God, like I'm gonna wake up and like this is gonna be gone. But at least I still have like, Spotify and Apple Play and YouTube and stuff like that. But just to like my main focus is Instagram of getting all this stuff done.
No, 100%. And I think that's the key right there, is what I would suggest to people. And it bothers me too, by the way, because I will see other pages that are still posting videos, and they're totally either under the radar, not under the radar. And that's my biggest problem too, is I think I've been fortunate enough to do so many cool things and connect with so many cool people. And there's a plethora of important people that are following my page that work for both companies, that I'm always under the radar. And that, like, as cool as it is, it also is made me more more applicable to get busted for doing something I shouldn't be doing, or spreading the wrong sort of news. Well, I don't have the freedom to be someone that breaks the news, because if I piss off someone for breaking out some news that they didn't want out there, they aren't with, like, they have the right to claim something on my account. And I'm pretty sure that's what happened, is that when the pandemic started, I think I shared something about Seth Rollins talking about the pandemic and whatnot, and I got taken down. And after that, I got a couple of claims. I'm like, oh, whoever, I pissed someone off.
Yeah.
They know I have the audience, and they know that I have that reach. So, like, if I'm going to share stuff, they want me to share stuff that isn't going to really affect their business or the perspective of their business. And to their right, that's fair, because I'm sharing their content. They have every right to do so if they feel uncomfortable with it. So anyways, my point being is, it does bother me when I see other people being able to post whatever they want and I can't, because I'm like, that's like, it was the anniversary of Bret Hart versus Stone Cold at WrestleMania 13 a couple of days ago. And obviously, like, old me would have posted the match and like shared a caption about what it meant to me and stuff. I'm like, I can't do that no more. I see other pages posting the match, I'm like, this sucks.
Exactly. I just posted a picture. That was pretty much it.
I just posted a picture too. I was like, I'll just go with the picture out, but it sucks. And to your point, though, like what you were saying, though, I think that's what's really important, and that's the thing I'm trying to do now. Is I want to find ways to at least take my loyal following, the people that really support the Wrestling Classic and have always been super cool and nice, but like to stay connected with them. So if that means, make sure you listen to the TWC show. Like, if anything happens again, just make sure you subscribe to the podcast, because that's how you're going to stay in touch with me. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Sign up for the Patreon I'm setting up. Like, there's going to be like a cheap $2 tier one. It's going to get you all this stuff, exclusive content, TWC show in video form. Like, you're going to get all this cool stuff, discounts on action figures, whatnot. Like, follow me on YouTube, follow me everywhere else, because I want to stay connected with you if this ever happens again. I want to create more forms of content too. I want to create more original content. I know right now, if you go to my page, you're like, well, he's kind of doing the same thing he's doing before. But you'll see, like, I'm trying to do more interviews. I'm trying to do more original content. I want to work with content where maybe I give you like a review of an old pay-per-view and it's me talking. I'm trying to create more stuff like that, because I feel like that's where I have to head now, for multiple reasons. Yes, I can't post certain things, but also you mentioned it earlier. It's that whole evolution thing, right? Like, adapt or perish. Like, you got to continue growing and trying new things, like to stay different, to stay relevant. If you just continue posting pictures and videos, at some point that runs its course,
Exactly.
And I've always been trying to do that, whether it's create merchandise, start a podcast, start a website, start writing blogs. Like, I always start doing so many different things, because I'm like, the more I'm doing, it gives you more reason to stick around, right? Does that make sense?
Definitely. Yeah. So you have the show on Dash Radio, right? Like, what days can people catch that if they don't know about that right now?
So if you have the Dash Radio app, I highly suggest you download the Dash Radio app. It's super cool. There's a lot of ad-free music on there, all different genres. It's easy if you have it to Bluetooth it to your car when you're in the car, just to listen to stuff too. But check out Dash Radio, the app. It's downloadable on all, Android and Apple and all that stuff. But on there, we are on the Dash Talk X channel, which is a channel just full of podcasts. Russell Rap's on there too, shout out to Emilio. But you can find us every Saturday at 3 p.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. Eastern time on Dash Talk X. That's where the TWC show airs on there. Other than that, like, just subscribe to the TWC show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to that feed. It drops every Friday for that feed. And that's also where all my interviews drop. So the thing with the casual conversations, and we were kind of talking about this off the air, is that trying to schedule an interview and trying to actually have it happen on the time you originally schedule it is really hard. Even with like big names, like, it's hard. 1 minute you think you're doing an interview, next thing you know, they push it to the next week or the next day. So my thing with the casual conversation is it's a thing that I do for the fans and for my followers and people that want to hear these interviews, but it's not a weekly thing. I don't promise to do it every week. It's a when I get someone cool and I can sit down and have a conversation with them, I'm gonna put it out there for you. I always release the video on my YouTube channel, and I also put the audio under the same stream of the TWC show. So if you're subscribed to the TWC show, you also get my interviews and my casual conversations.
See, that's smart because I said every Monday. So literally, you literally see me where I'm like hustling to just interview as many people as I can. Like I've been off this whole entire week, and literally this whole entire week I've been interviewing people every single day. So I probably have like 10 interviews in the bank right now.
So you can do that. That's
yeah. So I'm good right now.
Do you ever find this? Let me ask you this, because this is another thing that it bothers me, and it probably doesn't bother everybody. But have you ever like reached out to interview someone? And most wrestlers and people in the profession, they do this thing where they'll schedule their interviews all like in the same day or week just because they're trying to knock it out. Uh-huh. I always run into this issue where like, let's say hypothetically, not even hypothetically, this actually happened. I reached out to Renee Paquette, like I mentioned earlier, to do an interview with her, right? I guess she scheduled a bunch of interviews for the same week because that's when she was going to do them. Mm-hmm. So I didn't because I used to believe in the theory too. Like, let me just do a bunch of interviews and I'll sit on them and whatnot, right? And then someone else will do an interview with Renee Paquette, someone that's probably really well known and has a great following and stuff too. And then I'm like, we basically had the same conversation.
Yep, that happened to me, and that happened to me today.
Yeah,
somebody that I know, me and him we're just having a general conversation, and he had posted something about the Hall of Fame. By the time this comes out, that interview will already be out. So he goes, so I hit him up, me and him are talking, and I said, by any chance, like, who did you interview that's going to be a part of the Hall of Fame? And he says, oh, Georgia Smith. And I go, and I kind of just closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and then I text him back, me too. And he was like, when did you do it? I was like, I did it yesterday. He's like, oh, well, mine's just coming out next week. He's like, when is yours coming out? I was like, mine's just coming out for the Hall of Fame night. Like, she already knows this. Like, but then, going through the conversations, at least like my interview and his interview is different because my interview is more about what's going to happen for the night. Because when I did it, I told her, I said, well, this is going to air on Tuesday of the Hall of Fame. So she just went in on everything. So I was like, oh, great. But just to have like that comment, even when I interviewed Moose from Impact, it was around the time him and Rich Swann were having his match, and somebody else literally just had an interview with him the exact same time, and I was like, oh boy. So it's a little frustrating at times when you have to interview somebody and then somebody else just interviews them like literally 2 seconds before you did.
Yeah, and you got to like somehow mentally tell yourself that like, oh, okay, we have different audiences, but then you're like, I know there's a ton of crossover. Like I already know there is. Even if I want to pretend there's different audiences, there's a similar crossover. And I think people don't realize, like, whether it comes to running an Instagram page, whether it's doing interviews, like, I know when someone's doing it and they're just putting it out there and you get to watch it and you get to enjoy it, or you see me making posts and you get to enjoy it and you get to, like I cut all these clips up and I put a match up. Like, I think people, when they're not doing it, think it's a lot easier than it really is.
Exactly.
It's a lot of work, man. It's a lot of editing. It's a lot of preparing. Mm-hmm. I got a big interview coming up this weekend, and to be honest with you, like, I'm fully intimidated and nervous about it.
Nah, you got it.
And I know it'll be fine, but there's a part of me that's like, that's part of it that you don't see either, the nerve-wracking, the preparing, what am I going to ask? And I think I praise you. If you're trying to do an interview a week and make sure you have a weekly interview, that's anyone that does that, especially when like you're still building your credibility. You know what I mean? When you're kind of up there and you have a bunch of interviews up there, or even myself, like I'll give myself the benefit of the doubt that I get to be able to plug this large following that I have and that these certain people follow. So sometimes it's a little bit easier for me to get an interview than someone else as well. Mm-hmm. But when I see someone hustling and they don't have that following yet, or they're just starting to get interviews, like I am one of those people that I'm like, oh, I know how hard that is. Like I have a different appreciation for it than maybe other people because I do it, but I also know what it was. Because you got to remember, even though I am what I have now with my phone. I didn't always have that.
Right.
Like, I don't know what it was like when I tried doing stuff before. Nobody even wanted to deal with me because they're like, oh, he's some Instagram page. I still can't get anybody from the WWE because it's always just, oh, what does he do? He's an Instagram page. Like he's not on the radio. He's not.
I've sent like emails to them too, and it's just like it falls on deaf ears. So it's just like, okay, but like eventually it will happen. And there's people, and there's the crazy about thing is that there's people, you know, in WWE that, you know, I won't mention here, that literally they're like, I would love to do an interview with you.
Same,
but I literally have to go through the media company first and let them get the green light before I can actually do anything. And I'm like, all right.
I asked someone when I started the Casual Conversations, someone who I'm friends with on the WWE, and I've actually, without dropping names, I have interviewed them in the past. And they're like, at this time, like they want, because of the pandemic, they want to sit in on every interview and like hear everything that's being said and stuff. And I'm like, oh, okay. So he's like, it might be hard. And it's just like, they also don't want us doing interviews. And this was the weirdest part. They don't want us doing interviews with people that have a larger following, like yourself right now.
Why? That's crazy.
A random Joe Blow can get an interview, but I can't because I have wouldn't you want them to be doing interviews with people with a larger following? I don't know.
I did a charity event a couple of months ago with somebody from NXT.
Yeah.
And the guy literally told me, he was just like, hey, I know you have a show. You cannot put this on your show. No matter what you guys talk about, you cannot put it on your show because like WWE is going to get pissed and they're going to just like, they will never do this again. And they will put you on a list and you will never get anyone ever again. I was like, are you serious? It was like, yeah. It was like, this happened before. So he works like, so the person works with like WWE on a charity like events. So he kind of like anytime like there's charity stuff, he always hits me up because I'm always, you know, big with charities and like donating and stuff like that. And then, you know, in return, I get to talk to these people and just build these connections. So like later on, I can like possibly get them on the show. So when they told me this, and everybody tells me the same things, like, yeah, they're really like hard on like interviews and stuff like that, like what we do. And I was like, damn, that's crazy. Like that's just like being like having a super strict parent.
No, it's really hard when it comes to that. But, you know, I got lucky with a couple. Like I got to interview Sheamus and I got to interview Jinder. But with those guys, I don't even know if they asked anybody, to be honest. Like at the times that we did them. And interviewing is not easy. Like I said earlier, like to go back to that, like if you watch my interview with Sheamus, it did not go as planned. At a whole place we were going to meet up and do it in the studio and all that. And everything got like, didn't go as planned. And if you watch the interview, like I didn't even know what to do with my hands. Like I'm like moving them, rubbing them. It's like so funny, like just to go back and watch. You can see it on my YouTube channel. Like I don't know what I'm doing with my hands. And you could tell I was visibly nervous. And it's not easy. And I just like, for anyone listening to this, if you watch people's interviews, whether you watch the Call Up or you watch the Casual Conversations, or you watch Chris Van Vliet or Alicia Atout or any of these other great interviewers out there, like just know like it's hard. It's not easy. No matter how simple and easy that looks, no matter how popular they are, or like if they're just starting up, like it's hard scheduling these interviews, trying to do these interviews, trying to prepare for these interviews, trying to make sure they're good. Also taking care of your guests. Like, you know, I always do this thing where I'm like, listen, like I'm not going to put this up for like a week and a half, sometimes a week. You got this much time to tell me if you want anything taken out or edited out. Like, you know, like it's time consuming, man. It's hard. So to also the people that want to maybe start doing interviews and stuff, just know that it's harder than it looks.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You know, if you want to start a podcast, consistency is key. It's harder than it looks. You got to like really set time apart every week to do it. And I also always like to mention to people when I try to give advice is that, because I feel like it's a thing these days. I think we're both on a little bit on the old end. I think we're both like born in the 90s and whatnot. So we probably are better with it than I think this younger generation, because things took time back in the day. Just generally, like we never just, it's not like today. Everything's instant today. You want to watch something, it's on YouTube. You want to do something, you just do it. Like you want food, you can order it to your house. Like everything's so instant these days, you know, or I think a thing that we see happening a lot when young, I'm saying this not out of like spite to younger people or whatnot. Like I've had pages that started that asked me for advice that I got behind, and then they just disappeared off the face of the planet.
Oh yeah, I've done that too.
Because I think a lot of people in today's generation and society, even older people that have kind of transitioned into just what society is today without kind of being grateful for what they have or what is around them, is that everybody's looking for instant gratification. Things take time. If you're going to start a podcast, it's not going to pop off in the first 5 episodes.
No.
It might not even pop off in the first year, but it will pop off if you consistently put in the work and you just stay consistent with it, you know, and you're persistent with it. Like, I think people like will start things, and if it's like, well, my following is not growing, or like I'm not getting any guests, or nobody's watching, they'll just give up. And I'm like, that's not how you're gonna win at the end, you know?
That's what I tell people. It's like, you look at my first handful of episodes. I'm on episode right now, but 15. The first 8, 9 episodes were all friends of mine.
Mm-hmm.
All of them. It was like, hey, do you want to jump on? Yeah. Hey, do you want to jump on? Yeah. And then it just started building from there. You know, but this is all great advice that I know a lot of people that are going to listen to it are going to be like jotting down notes and saying like, oh, man, yes, I need to do this. I need to do that. You know, and instead of hearing it from me, they're hearing it from somebody who has way more experience than I do, in doing this.
Yeah, and then to be honest with you, if we're talking about giving advice, because this is what this podcast has turned into, I'll say one of the best advice I got, and I got it so many different ways from so many different people. The two that stand out the most is back in 2016, I interviewed the Singh brothers. They're actually from where I'm from, and went to the house and did an interview with them after they were involved in the Cruiserweight Classic. And the advice they gave me was the whole just show up, like just be there. Mm-hmm. Like if something's happening, just show up and be there. That's one thing I'll say was the biggest difference, because once I started just showing up to WrestleManias and stuff, and like being there WrestleMania weekend and meeting people, and connecting with the people that follow my page in person, it just built a different bond, because now they felt like, oh, I met him, I know him, like that's an actual person now. Like it's not just a page, just unseen face. And also connecting with people in the business, meeting them in person has left so many more like favorable perspective of them towards me, you know. Like I was at Wally Mania, no matter how intoxicated and drunk that I actually was, like I hung out with Liv Morgan and Drake Maverick and all these people that still support my page and what I'm doing because I met them that one time. Like, you know, like, and the second advice that someone gave me, and this came from Cleo Thomas, he was zero in holds and stuff, but we became really good friends. And I remember I was talking about, like, we were on a phone call and he was like, I was asking him about things I could do to grow, like his opinions, this and that. And I was talking about podcasts, and I'm like, well, everybody has a podcast. Well, who's going to listen to me over listening to like Bruce Pritchard and Eric Bischoff and JR and Stone Cold? Like, what, you know, like there's so many podcasts. And it's like, you know what, man, just start. Like, what's the harm of just starting it? Yeah. Start and see what happens. And I'm like, oh, but I want the production to be like this. I want a proper studio. I need a proper. He's like, no, just start, man. He's like, go back, look at Joe Rogan's first podcast. I went and looked at it as two dudes sitting on a couch with the worst camera quality in the world.
Exactly.
But look where he's at now, because he just started and he stayed consistent with it. He just showed up. He showed up and he did it.
Let me tell you something. Little by little, when I started doing this, it started off with me, the page, nothing at all. And then I said, you know what? I'm just going to go out there. I'm just going to start filming stuff and recording it with people. Then it was just me and my phone. Now it's turned into like me, a camera, a microphone,
a
little bit of lighting, but then little by little it starts to change. But yeah, but I definitely know where you know, when you say you just be there and just keep doing, it's gonna grow as time goes on.
And opportunities will come. The thing about opportunities now is, I'd say, you know, I always have this story, but way back in like 2015, I got really close with the Hart family, right? Like I became friends with Blade and Dallas, and I know all the kids and all that, right? Some of them live in Vancouver, so I met them here and stuff. So I got really cool with them. We had a solid relationship. Like I had WrestleMania weekend of 2000, the last WrestleMania that we were allowed to go to, 2019 in New York. Like I was having dinner with the entire family the first night I got there. Like I was at the table, me and my buddy, with the entire Hart family. It was weird, but it was cool at the same time. But like, I remember they reached out to me and they're like, yo, we want to start a podcast with our dad. Like, we want you to host it. Are you down? Like, da-da-da-da-da-da. And I've never did a podcast at this point, like, ever. Didn't even know the ins and outs of how to do it. And I was like, oh, you know, I'm like, you know, just give me some time. Like, I just need to figure it out. I don't know if I'm ready for that yet, but I think we can do it 100%. Just give me some time. And they're like, oh, okay, well, like, just let us know. And because I didn't say, yeah, let's do this, I got this, we'll figure it out, let's start next week. They had a thing with Nick Hossman on WrestleZone.
Oh man,
didn't last long. was okay. They had a little bit of a falling out, but I'm like, that was an opportunity that I had that I completely missed, you know?
Right.
And that's why one thing I always think about when there's an opportunity to do something, I'm like, no, I'm just, even if you don't know how to do it, guys, just say yes.
Yeah.
And you'll figure it out along the way. Sink or swim, you know?
Man, but Justin, man, it's been great talking to you. I'm going to wrap this interview up because we could stay here for hours just conversating. And most likely we're going to end up having a part 2 to this conversation because I know people want to know a lot more. So once again, just, plug in where people can find you.
Yeah, so you guys can follow me at the Wrestling Classic on Instagram, TWC Worldwide on Twitter. But if you click the link in my bio on the Wrestling Classic Instagram page, everything you need is right there. My articles for 1:37 p.m. are up on there. My podcast to find on Spotify, Radio, and Apple Podcasts. So the links are all there. And plus my merch stores on Pro Wrestling Tees and on twcshop.com. Those links are all up there too. I appreciate you for having me on. This was a blast. I'm definitely down for a part 2 whenever. And even if you just want me to come on and talk about wrestling and what's going on,
definitely
the current storylines and stuff like that, we can do that too and break it down.
That's like a plan.
Yeah. Other than that, man, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.